Perfect. Hey, well, it looks like we are live, everyone. Welcome to the third week of Real Hawk Talk, where we break down the day's Seahawks game. The Seahawks just lost to the Saints, in which the box score might indicate a very close game of 33-27, but it was anything but that. We've got a long list of pissed off concerns and things to talk about, whether it's the coaching staff, player execution, blunders towards the end of each half, maybe some unlucky bounces, but there's a lot we have to cover today. Jeff Simmons, who's, one of the typical contributors of the pod, will be showing up in about 3 to 4 minutes. So he'll join whenever he can. But in the meantime, you have me, Evan Hill SEA on Twitter. And then you have Nathan Ernst, Nathan E11 on Twitter. Nathan, how are you?
I'm all right. Doing all right.
Doing all right. That seems a little bit better than I am doing. Are you truly all right, or is that the optimistic version?
I think one of the good things about this game is it was bad early. And so I had plenty of time to kind of adjust and keep my temperament. And so, yeah, I'm doing okay. It was kind of a big, dumb football game, and I had fun with it, even though, yeah.
But you know what I fucking hated? They gave us a little bit of hope towards the end. They tried to give it to us.
If I hadn't watched that Wazoo game last night, I probably would disagree with you. But yeah, like after watching them completely coog it, and then so today I'm like, well, it could be worse. I've seen bigger comebacks in the last 12 hours. Like,
yeah. Hey, I've got a long list of things we can talk about. We'll try and cover all of them depending on what your availability looks like. People who are listening in the chat on YouTube, Twitter, wherever you are, Facebook, feel free to drop questions in the chat. I will be keeping an eye on it. So we'll do some Q&A throughout the show, hopefully to vent out some of your concerns. So feel free to ask a question in the YouTube chat. I'll be keeping an eye there. Nathan, overall impressions of this game. You know what? Fuck it. Let's play the blame game. Who are your top 3 people that what are the top 3 areas of this game? Who do you blame this loss on? If you go on twitter.com right now, you'll see your fucking feed flying, scrolling down with different takes on who's responsible. Who's responsible for this loss?
I'll share some behind the scenes details. The Real Hawk Talk chat got a little heated there for a while. And I think my primary contribution to it was just, hey, they're down 20 points at home. Like, there's blame to go around. That said, I think if I'm going to pick one person, one thing to blame, it's Brian Schneider. They gave up the punt return on a bad punt. I think that this would have been a very different game if not for that penalty on the Saints field goal by Woods, which ended up turning into a touchdown for them, put them down 3 scores instead of just it would have just been 13, right? And they would have had the ball about midfield. So that was huge. So there was just a few special teams blunders. And we've seen Brian Schneider, the team that's consistently tried to give that dude talent. It's like the Tom Cable thing where they've really poured a lot into special teams. They've made trades for guys like Nico Thorpe and DJ Alexander. They've drafted guys like Shaquem and other guys, and they talk about the special teams and how they care so much about special teams. And it's consistently like not great. And I think that, if you take back those special teams, if they just have an okay game on special teams, this is maybe a win instead of a loss.
And we've brought, Brian Schneider's name up, his name up on the pod before. I think in terms of Football Outsiders DVOA, their special teams has ranked like 15th or worse in the league going back like 5 or 6 years. So this is not like a 1 year off for Brian Schneider. This is like a consistent pattern of them sucking on special teams. And I get that special teams isn't a sexy part of the game. It's not some big 6'4" receiver catching a 40-yard touchdown. It's not typically super exciting unless you have exceptional talent returning, like Tyler Lockett punts or something like that. But it's typically, you hope, a boring side of the game when you're on the defensive side of it. This was anything but it. They completely shat the bed when it came to special teams. I'll give my take on the blame game. I said this in the Hawk blog, Real Hawk Talk chat, and I stand by it right now. This is 100% a coaching failure. Russell Wilson was not a problem today. Russell Wilson was the best player on the field today, and it was not even close. Who do you think was better?
I hate to do this. It pains me to do this, but Russ was probably the best, but Alvin Kamara, man, was awesome.
Oh, he was great. Alvin Kamara, we expected a big game out of him. He's a super exciting young talent. So at least I sort of expected that out of him. But Russell, there's these takes flying around on twitter.com right now that Russell Wilson had a bad game. Bullshit.
Yeah.
Bullshit. He missed one or two throws that were, I remember one that was to Jerron Brown late in like the third or fourth quarter. That was like slightly behind him, but it was like a 3-yard pass and they were still down like 20 or 23 points or something like that. Russell Wilson was not a problem today. You know who was a problem today? The coaching staff. Brian Schottenheimer specifically. And if you want to even really go deeper into the issue, Pete Carroll. Brian Schottenheimer executing Pete Carroll's offensive philosophy. Ultimately, in the first half of the game, when Russell Wilson was hot, he started the game off hot. They took the ball out of his hands. And I even made a list going through the game of things that concerned me. So let's start off with number one. The second drive of the game, they are on the opponent 39-yard line. They punt the ball. And it was like 4th and 1 or 4th and 2. Regardless, like even if it's up to 4th and 5, it's rainy, it's windy outside, you're in the opponent, 39, you go for it. The Saints already scored a touchdown off of a special teams blunder. That is the time to be aggressive. You fucking go for it on 4th down. It is cowardly, it is pathetic, and it is disgusting that they punted for a 20-yard gain. It's disgusting. It's completely cowardly, and I'm completely sick of it. They're playing like they have freaking Mark Sanchez at quarterback when they have Russell Wilson at quarterback. And it's completely typical. It's disgusting.
I'll play a little bit of devil's advocate here. It was still very early. And while they are not playing with Mark Sanchez at quarterback, they were playing against Teddy Bridgewater. And so
sure,
it was 7-0. But yeah, there's that surrender index, and it was like in the 99.7 percentile of cowardly punts. So like, not a lot to defend there, but like I do at least understand, if you step into Pete's mind, I can see how he justified that, but it was bad. And it's weird though, because I seem to remember something when we're talking about all the ways that they've invested in special teams. Don't they have a kicker that can make long kicks? Isn't that something that he's supposed to be able to do?
I 100% agree with you. I would have been completely comfortable with him taking the kick there. I don't know why they didn't.
If you are going to go out and spend money on a kicker, particularly one because of his ability to kick long kicks, like maybe you should let him kick that.
You're paying Jason Myers like $4.5 million a year, like one of the highest paid kickers in the NFL, if not the highest. Let him prove it. Let him do his job. Let him kick the ball. I don't know why they didn't go for it. It completely blows my mind. There was another first down where Pete didn't challenge the spot on Russell Wilson's first down. Pete burned a second half timeout to save 18 inches on the goal line. Do you remember that catastrophe? I know the timeout didn't come back to really bite us in the ass later in the game because there's really no shot. But
it kind of did because they blew the end of the half. They hurried up. They got like 2 yards, and then they hurried up. They had 2 timeouts. They didn't use them, and then they hit that huge play to DK, and the time runs out. And so they blew a timeout. Zach Whitman had a great tweet on this. But they blew a timeout to save 18 inches and then still walked away with 2 in their pocket, and they had the ball on like the 10-yard line. Like that was, if you want to talk about coaching failures, the punt wasn't great. There was, I think, a challenge that was bad, not challenging Russell's spot. But that time management at the end of the half was awful.
So I think we're talking about 2 different things. That was a completely different circumstance.
Yeah, totally. But like they spend a timeout to save 18 inches and then don't use their timeouts at the end of the game. Like the timeout usage was insane. And
it was horrible.
They blew 2 timeouts because they couldn't get the right amount of men on the field. So like, if you really want to pinpoint the coaching failures, like all of that are coaching failures.
purely from a game management perspective, this was probably one of Pete Carroll's, I think, worst games he's ever coached as a Seahawk.
That's probably fair. Yeah.
I don't think that's an understatement. I don't think that's irrational. It was horrifically managed. You know what? One play I consider actually to be Pete's problem too? Tedrick coming off the field on what I think was, do you remember when they penalized us 15 yards for unsportsmanlike conduct? And it was a player.
Was that Tedrick?
It was fucking Tedrick Thompson. I'm not even kidding. I am not even kidding. He was like in a hoodie and it was super hard to tell who it was, but it showed one close-up face-up. It was 100% Tedrick Thompson.
That dude can't help but give up explosive plays. Even when he's not active, he can find out a way to give up a 15-yard play.
He's causing penalties even when he's not active. Straight from the source, Nathan Ernst, you're 100% correct.
Wow.
Yeah, to me, that's a player discipline issue. Yes, Tedrick Thompson. Yeah, that's Tedrick Thompson moving his body and doing something stupid. But to me, that's like coaches have to have their players in line on the bench. That's just stupid. I'm pretty sure it was like on like a fourth down too. I think it wasn't it like a punt or something and it gave them a first down.
It was after the fumble punt that they recovered. I don't think it mattered. I mean, it was 15 yards. That sucked, but it didn't matter like a ton, I don't think.
Yeah. The run on third and 6 ended the third quarter. This was after the fumble recovery. So when they mucked the punt return on the fumble, they ran it on 3rd and 6 and it went nowhere. It went just for 1 yard. That was a classic case of taking the ball out of Russell Wilson's hands. It made no sense to me. 4th and 1, you throw it deep to Malik Turner. I don't know if that was Russell Wilson audibling out of like a designed run or not, but either way, that was all sorts of confusing for me. Like Ben Baldwin had a great tweet on this. The Seahawks run the ball when they're supposed to pass the ball, and they pass the ball when they're supposed to run the ball. 4th and 1, 4th and inches, fucking run the ball. It's like an 80% chance that you convert it. Run the ball. Completely stupid.
In fairness, I don't know that they should have ran the ball there. They got stuffed on like 4 short yardage plays before that. Now that
okay, but if you're going to pass the ball, I don't think a deep pass to Malik Turner is the correct call, though.
Also fair.
So I'm fine with passing it. Like, pass the ball. I don't care. But fucking target like somebody better than like your 5th receiver, right?
Might be a little unfair to Malik Turner, but yes, very fair.
4 or 5 receiver.
Sure. I mean, he's better than John Brown, but all right.
Jeff Simmons, welcome to the pod. I'm sorry you caught me mid-ranting. How are you?
Don't apologize for that. That game was the worst.
We're talking about the horrendous coaching errors that occurred today and how this game was 100% to be blamed on the coaching staff, in my very non-professional opinion. And then not going it for 2 on that, last 4th quarter drive. I think that was completely stupid. I think there were just so many decisions, so many play calls by, I think, Brian Schottenheimer, and really Brian Schottenheimer, executing on Pete Carroll's half, his offensive identity. There were so many clear errors, so many clear blunders. To me, the coaching staff failed this team today. That's what it was. Jeff, what's your take? We were playing the blame game a little bit earlier in terms, and I know we don't like playing this game. It got a little bit heated in the Real Hawk Talk chat, but yeah. Who do you place the blame, the blame of this loss on? Whose head needs to roll?
I'm with you. I think it starts at the top. I think we talk all year about kind of the risky style of Pete's system, and they've been kind of playing with fire for a while. And like we were fighting on the thread today, saying like that they think we're saying like the coaches are responsible, not the players. I think that was a take they seem to be getting, and they were kind of taking shots at that on Twitter all day. But when you play this conservative style that has no margin for error and you make mistakes, that's a symptom of a bigger problem, that they're not putting their players in position to win. And I watched the Chiefs game today, for example, watching how they play versus how the Seahawks play. And I think this all just comes back to Pete. You can't win in the first quarter bullshit, because you can lose in the first quarter. And just from like there are so many coaching mistakes for not calling that timeout at the end of the second half, from just the way they called the game early on. Though their offense, they were just playing not to lose all day, and it bit them. They should have lost that first game too, really, playing that same style. And This was a stupid game where they were just way too conservative. If you play not to lose and play conservative all the time and you make mistakes, it's going to bite you. And it bit them today against a team missing their starting quarterback and really didn't have to do that much in the first half to get that lead. And I thought the coaches were awful today. I think that was one of Pete's whole staff's worst games, from Schneider to Schottenheimer. They had to take 2 timeouts with 12 guys on the field. There was a lot of things you can put directly on the coaches. So I don't see how you can come out and be like, well, the players made mistakes, so let's ignore the process issues. Just look at results. You're missing the point.
100% agree, Jeff. Outside of coaching being one of the major issues today, the other big name that's come up in a lot of conversations is Chris Carson. He's fumbled how many times? 3 times in 8 quarters. In all of 2018, he had 3 fumbles. He has matched his 2018 fumble numbers in 3 games of 2019. What do we do with Chris Carson? Because in terms of how I see it, I think from a pure talent perspective, I think Chris Carson is probably our best back by a mile. Some will say CJ Prosise, but he's back there as a little bit of a gadget player. Rashad Penny, I don't think is anywhere close to Chris Carson's talent level. Travis Homer isn't close, obviously. What do we do with Chris Carson? The Seahawks are so intent on running the football and making Chris Carson the engine of this offense. So somebody's going to continue to get carries. It could be Chris Carson. It could be somebody else. What do we do with Chris Carson, Nathan? What do we do with this?
Well, I'll start by shouting out Black Knight in the chat, who paid $2 to say that Carson lost us this game with a fumble. We should demote him. I'm not a big doghouse kind of guy, but at some point, a fumble a game, you can't keep playing, or you at least can't play as much as they probably want him to play. So, he's still, to me, the best back. I've always thought that. He's, when you look at the analytics and all that, and as much as running backs don't matter, in the ways that we can kind of look at running backs mattering, he's consistently up at the top, right? And so he does good things. He's a good player, and so you can't just take the ball out of his hands completely. But I do think it's probably worthwhile to give Prosise more carries. He got some run today. He looked fine. If he's healthy, then I think keep feeding him. And so, yeah, he should probably lose some snaps. He should lose some carries until he can show that this isn't a consistent problem. But the other thing I would say is that, fumble recovery definitely is a lot of luck. And so we shouldn't expect him to continue to lose all of his fumbles. That has been bad luck a little bit, probably. And this just isn't super typical for him. So I would expect this to not stay the same. And so I wouldn't just completely demote him or doghouse him or anything.
My concern is that that's a little bit of an optimistic take. And I know I'm the optimistic person typically in this group, but considering Chris Carson has had fumble issues throughout not just his NFL career, but really his collegiate career, he had strong fumbling issues. You don't think these are going to continue to be a problem?
I want to say that he hasn't had that same problem in the pros. I know that was a knock on him coming out of college.
He had 3. It's his second year in the NFL, right? Or is it his 3rd year?
Yeah, so he had 3 fumbles on his first 300 carries, basically, and he has now had 2 fumbles on his first, or 3 fumbles on his first 45 some carries. So he's probably not going to fumble once every 10 carries. That's probably not going to keep up. But yeah, it's totally fair. It is a problem. It's officially you can definitely look at it and say that this cost them the game. That was huge. A lot of stuff cost them this game, but that was certainly one of the bigger things. And so, he deserves to lose some time over this until it gets straightened out.
Jeff, what's your take on the Carson situation?
I'm similar with Nathan. I think it's one of those things that I think you kind of just got to ride it out. And I know it's not the best solution because that play, last week, that should have ended. That really flipped the game and almost flipped the game last week in Pittsburgh. But I just don't know if they want to play it like this and play this Minnesota Vikings run the ball, set up play action kind of game. I think you need a guy like Chris Carson based on who they have. Prosise, unless you want to go big on Penny, but he's coming off a hamstring injury. I think that the mistakes he's making are coachable. I know they mentioned on the broadcast, like Chad Morton was showing him Tiki Barber film, who did have a fumbling problem that did ultimately get resolved. So I'm hoping they can fix it. But again, he's got to be on a short leash at this point. Any fumble based on something like that, where it's just him not securing the ball, that's something where you could just sit him down. And it's unfortunate, but I just don't see what they're like. I know you want to punish him for the mistakes, but is that a better long-term alternative just to give Penny more carries or Procise more carries? Unless you're completely changing your style, I don't think that's a better solution.
On top of the joys that came out of today's game, Jermaine Ifedi had another holding penalty, I believe it was. I expected him to have 3 penalties today, but he surprised everyone and only had 1. So
he just got his ass kicked all day long.
He really
He
did.
could have had
He
more
really
holding
did.
penalties. I mean, he was awful.
Yeah. What's the name of the defender that was going up against him all day? It's the famous guy. Yeah.
Cam Jordan.
Yeah. I feel like outside of Ifedi, and tell me if you guys think I'm wrong. Outside of Ifedi, I thought the offensive line actually played okay today. I don't think they were a major issue.
I'm waiting for the Brown panic to start. I don't.
Oh, I mean, I saw the injury news. If that's what you're referencing.
No, I just don't think he has not been second team all pro level this year. And I noticed, I didn't watch him super closely. So maybe on the whole, he was fine, but I definitely noticed him struggling at times today.
Yeah, that's a problem because they just signed him to a 3-year extension. I believe it was last offseason. I'm just checking real quick. Yeah, he's under contract through 2021. It looks like they could cut him as soon as next year. I'm not saying they're going to cut him as soon as next year or anything like that. But I do think there is some legitimate concern about his age in relation to, the tier of play style that he can, continue to keep up. He is 34 years old. He will be 35 next season. He is not getting any younger. I know Andrew Whitworth is like freaking 38, 39 years old and is a stud left tackle for the Rams. But the Seahawks are investing in some older talent on this line. And I think the Dwayne Brown situation, specifically this arm injury, it looks like he received or incurred late in today's game. I think it was literally like 2 or 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. It sounds like he's going to have an MRI on Monday. So this is not good. Jeff, what are your thoughts on the situation?
Yeah, the injury would be another issue. Yeah, but Nathan's right. I noticed that watching the Bengals game, especially, he looked different in terms of like he was arguably like a dominant player last year. And I don't think in any of the 3 games he's even been above good. And that was a big factor for them last year. The big reason their line appeared to take a big step forward. They had a dominant left tackle, and he's the best player on the line. If he's playing just okay, that's a problem. But there's just problems all over the place right now. Like they could easily be 0-3, even though last game should have been a win. But the defense, the front seven, which we were like, this is a dominant front seven, they're not tackling very well. Clowney and Anso are pretty much non-existent today. So it's not just the coach, and the players weren't very good either today. Like the offensive line was fine, but Ifedi continues to struggle. I don't know what you do with him, especially if Brown's hurt. Defense is not good right now, and just like they're not tackling. Kamara embarrassed them today.
So someone just asked in the chat, what happened to Michael Dixon? He was an All-Pro last year as a rookie. Nathan, how do you feel Dixon performed today and has been performing this entire season?
I'm the last person to ask about punters because I just don't care that much. He had a bad punt and it went back for a touchdown, and I didn't like that part. After that, his punts seemed like punts. So he punted.
Good analysis. Yeah. Straight into the point.
Yep.
Jeff, what's your take on the Michael Dixon situation or pending doom with his decline?
It's an odd situation because like in the preseason, last year he looked like an outlier, like a generational style punter, and now he had a great punt today a couple times. But I'm not, I don't know why the punts have been different. I don't know what the year-to-year I imagine punters are relatively consistent, but the quality of his punts just look a little bit different. It started in the preseason, and he just looks like a guy right now. And that's really not why you draft a punter in the 5th round, and it's not why you had an all-pro punter last year. And it's just, there's not a lot of guys who are playing above expectations right now. He's one of them, and it's really surprising because like punters have pretty good longevity, especially a guy in all-pro as a rookie. But when he's not even playing well, it's probably the last of their problems right now, but it's not good.
Somebody in the chat, Matt Gum, I have to shout you out for this. Are you guys excited that Collier had the same impact as Clowney and Ansa today?
That's Chris 30 Acre Fortress tweeted out the same thing, and that one hit me. That took the wind out a little bit.
But I'm sorry, I know we're completely jumping all over the place, but what are your guys' thoughts on the LJ Collier situation? He played like 18 snaps last week and then was what I believe is a healthy scratch today. What's the reason for that, Jeff or Nathan?
Yeah, Nathan, go ahead.
No, yeah, he was bad. Like it's not a lot more complicated than that. Like all the problems that like we could see in the preseason with him like overextending and stuff and some of those practice clips, he did that a lot, and you can't do that in the pros.
Yeah, and then combine that exactly with the fact that he barely had training camp at a position with a huge learning curve where even like Frank Clark had like 2 sacks his first year.
Like I said, I just pretend DK Metcalf is our 1st round pick and I feel better about myself. That's how it works out. How did we lose? How did the Seahawks lose the game when we had time of possession, more first downs, and more yards? Well, ladies and gentlemen, the answer is Pete Clay Carroll. On a more serious note, a combination of, a complete, how do I even word this? A complete collapse by the special teams, obviously. The Carson fumble gave 7 points away. Carson has really gifted, our opposing teams like 14, 17 points in the last, 2 weeks. He's been a massive liability. I don't think that's an understatement or an exaggeration. You just can't make the – sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, and one of the things, I kind of touched on it earlier, but like they were really bad in short yardage, and that's something that Carson's usually good at. And even after the fumble, they were putting him out there in those situations, and they couldn't convert. It was, like one of the things late in the game, I kind of like looked up and I was like, how do they only have 14 points? Like, I get it, they're getting their ass kicked here, but the offense didn't seem to be that big of a problem. I mean, Russ looked great for large stretches of the game. And so I think that part of it was obviously the fumble. And then, they couldn't sustain a couple of these drives and even went for it on 4th down at least once. And so I think their inefficiency or ineffectiveness in the short yardage situations hurt them a lot today. Yeah,
they just made game changing. Like Pete made a lot of mistakes. He even admitted, I saw in his press conference, but they made 4 game changing, like boneheaded mistakes, and you're going to lose almost every time with stuff like that. But there's a punt return for the touchdown. I don't know if that's a mistake, but Dixon makes a bad punt. Then there's the play where Al Woods jumps offside or lines up incorrectly on the field goal, which they miss. That play has swung the game as much as anything. If they miss that field goal and Seahawks get a short field there, that can completely change the game. They score a touchdown there. The Carson fumble, which was actually a really good run to get them from deep in their own territory to like the 35 and to end that into a pick 6 or a touchdown the other way. The 4th and 1 deep pass, I'm not sure what happened there. I think Russell saw like cover 0, and that was awful. They just made mistake after mistake after mistake. And when you play a dumb conservative style and do that, you got no shot, even against a backup quarterback.
Let's shift notes a little bit. On a positive note, who are your positive takeaways from today? Who played well? And the caveat here is you can't say Russell Wilson or Tyler Lockett. So those 2 are, and I'm actually going to, executive decision, I'm going to add DK Metcalf into that conversation. So those 3 players you can't mention. Nathan, who was a highlight for you today?
DK Metcalf.
That 155-yard catch was pretty cool, though.
Yeah, Max Skinner in the chat was asking if we could talk about on the bright side that catch. That was ridiculous, that catch. I don't care if we're not allowed to talk about him. That catch was amazing. And if Pete hadn't jacked up the timeout situation, they probably would have scored. I mean, they almost certainly would have gotten points out of that drive. So Metcalf continues to be loads of fun. Quill played well, right? Quill had a couple nice plays. He had a nice pass breakup. I think was it when they forced the field goal but then they had the penalty? I think that was when he had one of the nice pass breakups. I just noticed him a couple times looking pretty good. Obviously hard to say without the all 22. Maybe he was terrible and I just couldn't tell, but he looked good. KJ kind of had a couple nice plays. Also ended up with that that pass interference, which I get it. Like he was coming around trying to move out of the way of the guy and then kind of slipped. But like, dude, you super just tackled the receiver. That's not allowed. It's against the rules. You can't complain about that. But I thought KJ of, all the problems tackling today, I actually noticed KJ with a couple nice tackles. He tripped up Kamara a couple times. Yeah, I think that's Disley. Disley's still good. Disley's good.
Disley is good. I'm happy to see that this injury doesn't appear to, or the injury from last year doesn't appear to be preventing him from being a contributor to this offense. So Jeff, how about your take? Who was a positive bright in the darkness to you today? Jeff, did you hear me?
No, I couldn't hear you. What'd you say there?
Oh, sorry if I was muted. Who was a positive light in the darkness for you today? And you can't say DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, or Russell Wilson.
Okay, well, I thought Rasheem Green looked okay out in the first half. Then he was complete zero, and like most of the defense was in the second half. Bobby had 18 tackles, but the whole team just tackled poorly in space. It's hard to say like they were good.
I'm furious with you because you took my answer.
Yeah.
But were you going to say anything else about his performance?
No, like I can't think of anyone. Like
I actually have one that you guys didn't think of. KJ Wright, I felt like played a really good game today.
I said KJ.
You did say KJ?
Yeah, I said KJ.
Yeah, I must have completely gone into a different. Okay. Well, I thought KJ was all over the field, made tons of great tackles, sniffed out some really good screens. Yep. He was somebody when he signed his 2-year extension this offseason, or not an extension, but a new deal, that I felt like it was going to be a 1-year deal. And I didn't know if he was going to be around in 2020. I could see him being around in 2020 based off of how he's playing today, this season so far. I think he's been productive and exciting to watch. And it looks like he's the same old KJ. So I'm happy with how he's performed. Just looking through some last Q&A in the chat. Are we the Seattle Dolphins? I hope we're not the Seattle Dolphins. The good news is on an optimistic note, if you had told me the Seahawks were going to start the season 2-1 and you weren't going to tell me anything else, you didn't tell me who we lost to, nothing, I'd be happy with that. I'd be happy with 2-1. And would you not happy?
No, yeah. I had them going 11-5 and starting the season 1-2. I thought they were going to lose that Steelers game last week. So yeah, big picture.
I mean, big picture is it's one loss. They travel south down to Arizona this upcoming Sunday. I will be at the game. Hopefully tons of other Seahawks fans will be at the game. We should absolutely stomp that Arizona Cardinals team. And if we don't, I think we have big, big problems. So
I'm really
going to be an interesting week.
Can I rant about something for just a moment here?
Nathan, take all the time you want.
Okay. So I'm going to pick on Lydia Cruz, who I think she's fine. But talking about, she tweeted out that Russell Wilson has thrown 45 or more times just in 4 other games. So in every game where Russell Wilson has thrown 45 or more times, they've lost. Twice in 2017, once in 2016, once in 2015. The thing about passing a lot is you tend to do it when you're down. So this comes up a lot. It's called game script. Teams who pass a lot usually do it because they didn't pass well early. That's not the case in this game. They got screwed by other stuff, but they got down 20 points and then had to pass a ton and made progress in the second half. So like the passing a lot thing, like I don't want to hear anybody telling me that Russell Wilson can't pass a lot, that it whatever, or that it's bad to pass a lot. Like, no, that's not what happens. Teams run more when they're up and they pass more when they're down already. It's correlation and causation. Please, I hope everybody at this point understands that.
Jeff, were you going to say something before Nathan went on his analytical rant?
I'm just saying, I know they're 2-1, but I'm very discouraged with how they're playing. I think Russell's been great, and the fact that these games have been two pretty bad struggles where they could have easily, against an inferior team today, they played a backup quarterback and just shot themselves in the foot. I think they need to start faster. I think they need to start playing better. And I know, like, the Niners won today. The Rams could be 3-0. This is a really stacked conference, and they're not playing well at all. They don't look like a contending team to me. And I know we want to blame coaching. We want to point a finger. I don't know what it is. But overall, this is players, this is coaches. They're not playing very well. Outside of Russell, who I think has been pretty good. He missed that fourth down thing today, but overall, he's been really, really good. I think that just the team needs to play better. Their best players, Lockett's been great, Metcalf's been great, but some of the guys on defense, they need to step up, and Seahawks simply need to play better. They're not looking like a great team right now. They don't even look like a good team. Say they were a horrific team, and it's unfortunate because this team should be competing right now.
You bring up a great point, and I appreciate what you said earlier in the pod. Their 2 wins, to be on a little bit of the devil's advocate side, come against winless teams. The Bengals are 0-3, 0-2 if they hadn't played the Hawks. And then the Steelers are 0-3 also. They lost to the Niners today. So the Rams play the Browns on Sunday Night Football tonight. But currently, the Niners sit ahead of the Seahawks in the NFC West. So it looks like it's going to be a contending division. I don't think this is going to be an easy gimme for, an NFC West title or anything like that. If the Seahawks are looking to contend, they need to win the division. And they ultimately can't lose games like today. I said this in the Real Hawk Talk chat. I truly believe this game is going to come back and bite their ass in the playoffs when it comes to seeding. There'll be one game off, or the Saints will be somewhere deep in the playoffs, and it'll affect seeding in a major way. So I really, really, emphasize what you said, Jeff. I'm discouraged by today's game, and it's a complete failure from the coaching staff, from player execution side to game planning, and ultimately, special teams and Chris Carson have been major liabilities for this team. So with that said, everyone, thanks for tuning into Real Hawk Talk. The Seahawks travel down to Arizona to take on the Cardinals this Sunday. We will have 2 podcasts this week, one on Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Pacific time, doing a preview of the upcoming week against the Cardinals. So make sure to tune in for that. Check our, you can subscribe on youtube.com/hawkblogger to be notified when we go live. Patreon is another great way to support us. Patreon.com/hawkblogger. Even $5 a month is a huge contribution. We have tons of costs when it comes to running our platform, pushing out new content, pushing out these shows. There's a lot of work and money that goes into it. So we would really, really appreciate your support. With that said, let's hope for a win against the Cardinals, and hopefully they can start off the season 3-1. Tune in Wednesday night. Don't forget about that. Previewing the upcoming week, Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Pacific time. We'll see you guys soon.